Let's talk now about connecting different MIDI devices to your ContinuuMini. Most likely to play the ContinuuMini as an 8-voice polyphonic sound engine. We can also set this up to play other devices from the ContinuuMini if we like. Now, if you've just got your ContinuuMini and you don't have a Continuum, the first thing you'll likely want to do is connect up some external controller, probably a standard MIDI controller, which is what I have here, an M-Audio Keyrig 25, or perhaps an MPE controller we'll talk about in a bit. But to connect up a standard MIDI controller that's not outputting MPE, we want to set this so that it will transmit on channel 1. Then I want to take my device, this happens to be a USB device, so I connect that to my computer, and now I want to bring up the EaganMatrix. Okay, I have my EaganMatrix up. Now I want to go, as we said in a previous video, to the cogwheel and go to MIDI and Global Settings. And now I'll see my MIDI editor, I'll see my ContinuuMini is connected, and now I want to look at the external 1 and external 2 MIDI connections. Remember, these can be set to filter 3 kinds of data. Music data, which is my normal MIDI data, note data, bend data, data that will affect the performance. I can also set this to configuration data, which will affect loading ContinuuMini presets and other configuration parameters specific to the ContinuuMini, or I could set it to all data, which would be both. I want to set this to music data for now because I don't want to by accident select some button that might send out a MIDI message that will change the preset of the ContinuuMini. If you wanted to do that and you have your device set to do preset changes in addition to playing, you can select all data. Both external inputs are unconnected. I'll select this. Obviously, the ContinuuMini is already connected. The USB 02 device is my keyboard device. I'll select that. The other thing I want to make sure is that my preset is set to MPE Plus for Y and Z. This will allow the ContinuuMini to accept channel 1 data as input. If I select some other option like a CC for one of these, the ContinuuMini will not process channel 1 input correctly. That's just a special function that's been programmed into the ContinuuMini. If you want to connect up an external device on channel 1, just set your preset to MPE Plus here. Previous versions of the EaganMatrix used an external note mode for Continuum channel 1 processing. This has been optimized in the latest release for this MPE Plus mode to do it automatically. Now I should be able to play, and whatever preset I have set here, Synth Lead 1, this is set to Polyphony Bass 4 Plus, Expanded Bass 4. Remember, expanded polyphony, the plus, doubles your bass polyphony, so this preset should be able to output up to 8 voices. Well, it plays 4 no problem. It plays 8, no problem. What about pitch bend? The X bend option, when I'm set to MPE Plus, it doesn't matter what I'm set to for these top options, the default being 96. My bend will always be a half step. If I want something greater than that, I'll select one of these 4 options underneath that are geared for this MPE Plus channel 1 mode. I can select 2, which would be a whole step. We have options of 5, 7, and 12. 12 would be an octave. What if I want to deal with dynamics? If my MIDI keyboard doesn't support channel pressure or polynote pressure or aftertouch, let's say it only supports MIDI velocity, the ContinuuMini will interpret in this channel 1 mode MIDI velocity if you use a Z function where it applies. That is, I could program a preset that doesn't output on pressure on the fingerboard. It might set a constant output volume, for example. Well, let's bring up the standard sine wave preset. This is the simplest preset you can write. It uses the standard X formula that tracks pitch on the frequency input to this oscillator, and then we use the standard Z squared output function to send the output of this oscillator, which is module 1, to the left and right outputs. So if I want to just use MIDI velocity as my dynamic control, pressing soft, and you can hear I can get dynamic control that way. Now, if you had an MPE device that can send channel pressure or polynote pressure, that's even better, but you can support standard MIDI keyboards in this manner. Now, what about modulation wheel or button, as is the case here? You need to set this to CC74 for it to be used in conjunction with Y, which is our front to back motion. And in your presets, you can set Y to be controlling almost anything. So now we'll take our standard function Y, we'll put that on the spectral balance control of this oscillator. What that will do is, as I go from 0, which is the front, to 1, which is the top, I will increase the complexity of the waveform of this oscillator from a sine wave at the 0 bottom point up through a sawtooth function at the top. What if I want to do a similar operation using the mod wheel? I programmed this to CC74, and that's about it for connecting up an external controller on channel 1. Now, of course, I could have connected up an MPE device that would play on channels 2 to N. Everything would be fine then. In that case, I would want to use my bend that's set to one of these values above. And we'll see an example of that later with Linnstrument and the Rolly Rise. Now let's go to the opposite extreme. Let's say I'm a Continuum owner and I bought a ContinuuMini to go with it. Now, how might I use this? Let's say I don't have an expanded Continuum and I want to use a Continuum EaganMatrix expander-like function. Well, I can't really do that, but what I can do with the ContinuuMini is play one preset on the Continuum and have the Continuum also play the ContinuuMini playing another preset, and this will simulate one of the CEE modes. And I'm sure you can think of a lot of other ways to use this combination. Let's see how we might set that up. Now, unfortunately, I can't bring up an instance of the Continuum editor and the ContinuuMini editor at the same time. There is a procedure to do this. However, it may not work depending upon what MIDI interface you have. So if you want to give that a shot, there's some instructions on the Facebook page to do that and see if it works for you. What you can do, however, is switch back and forth from the Continuum version of the editor to the ContinuuMini version. I have the 8.70 ContinuuMini editor up, and if I go to Midi and Global Settings, instead of the source being ContinuuMini, let me find the MIDI device that my Continuum is using, the Mio in my case. Let me set the source and the destination to the Mio interface, and you'll notice the version 8.5 old Continuum version of the editor came up. This is set to my little sax preset. Well, I want to prove that I'm playing the ContinuuMini and not the Continuum. So let's go and set ourselves to the empty preset. The only thing we want to make sure is that Y and Z are set to MPE plus, because I want to play the ContinuuMini from my Continuum in MPE plus mode. Got that set. Bend is set to the default 96. Nothing should be playing now if I play my Continuum. Let's go and set ourselves back to ContinuuMini. I'll go back to Midi and Global Settings. So instead of the Mio, I'll set myself back to the ContinuuMini, and the editor should change now. There it goes, back to version 8.7, which is my ContinuuMini version. I can see the M2X there, indicating I'm ContinuuMini. And now what I want to do is the external input, I'll set that using music data, because I don't want to set a preset on the Continuum and by mistake change a preset that I have set on the Mini. So I'll set this to music data. I'll find my interface for the Continuum. There it is, Mio. And I'll now exit out of there. I have the system preset choir set here. I'll make sure that that's set to MPE plus, like my Continuum is set to. And I can play polyphonically, just like I can on the Continuum, only I'm playing the ContinuuMini. Now, you can also play the continuum from the ContinuuMini by going into Midi and global settings and switching the two around, but I'm not sure that that is quite as useful as playing the ContinuuMini from the Continuum. Now let's talk about interfacing the Linnstrument with the ContinuuMini. The Linnstrument has no sound engine on itself, so we're going to play the ContinuuMini from the Linnstrument. Like everything else we've done, the first thing we want to do is connect up the Linnstrument to our computer, and I've done that now, and after you do that, you'll bring up the EaganMatrix. Okay, we've brought up the EaganMatrix. We'll go to Midi and Global Settings, and in External 1 or 2, if you're using External 1 for something else, we'll set it to our Linnstrument connection. Now we'll select some preset, assigned to sax in this case, and I'll look at what's set here. I want to make sure the preset is set to MPE+. You can also work with MPE, but it's simpler. Let's just use MPE+. We're going to want to look at what bend is set and what my polyphony is. We really don't need bend of 96 for the Linnstrument. Let's set that to say 36. The only thing we want to make sure is whatever we set the bend to in the EaganMatrix preset, we're going to set the bend to on the Linnstrument. Now this preset has a polyphony of bass 4+, which means it can go up to the full 8-voice polyphony of the ContinuuMini. And now we'll set up the Linnstrument. The Linnstrument doesn't have a software program to set itself up. You use one of these buttons to set different configurations. Now the base global settings will go in. We'll make sure we're set to an MPE mode. The Midi mode we're going to set to channel per note mode. We don't want one channel. We want to use the MPE capabilities of the ContinuuMini. We're going to, in the view, set this to per note channel. Now on my Midi channels, I'm going to select however many channels I have for my bass polyphony. In this case, I have polyphony going up to 8, so if I want to play up to 8 polyphonic notes on the Linnstrument, I'll set this from channel 2, because MPE Plus and MPE accept Midi channel 2 to your max polyphony plus 1. So if I want 8 voices, I'm going to set this from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Those are the channels that I'll be outputting on and the ContinuuMini will accept. Now bend range, I want to make sure this is set to whatever I have set in my preset. I set it to 36, and on the Linnstrument you can set 2, 3, 4, 12, 24, and then if you want something above that, you hold a note for a while, and then you can go all the way up to 96 if you want, but we want to set this to 36 for now. Now for pitch, we can quantize it initially if we want, or not. Let's take that off for now. On timbre, or Y, which maps to Y on the ContinuuMini, front to back on the ContinuuMini, bottom to top on a cell on the Linnstrument, we're going to set that to on, and we're going to set it to CC74. The loudness, or Z, we're going to set on, and we're going to set that to channel pressure. And then this is just how colors are displayed on the Linnstrument. We'll set to normal, and I'll set the left split here. We won't worry about any splits. That should be good to go to play 8 channels on the instrument that I have set up. I can go into my note mode now, and on the Mini, and I can play polyphonically. Pressure is now sensitive. I can press lightly and increase volume with pressure, just like on the ContinuuMini. In this preset, the Y motion isn't really doing anything. Let's bring up a preset where I have some Y motion. Now on this one, you'll notice I have a bass polyphony of 2+. So if I'm playing, some notes are going to cut out on me. I want to go in and set this to a polyphony of 4, because 2+ would be a polyphony of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All these other channels can come off, and now I shouldn't have anything cutting out on me. And this preset has some change on Y. The same thing on the Linnstrument. In fact, you can see the width of Y on the Linnstrument is not too far off the width of the ContinuuMini. One of the reasons why I feel the Linnstrument is the perfect pair for the ContinuuMini if you learn how to play it. We might try one more thing here. Let's set ourselves back to our sax sound. We'll make sure we set back to 36 bend that we had, and we'll go back in, and instead of playing channel per note, the Linnstrument lets you play channel per row. Let's set that up. Channel per row and per row channel. This will set us up for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now each row is playing on a separate channel, and as we said, each cell is kind of the same width as the ContinuuMini. So in this kind of a setup, in effect, we've set this up so that I have 8 ContinuuMinis in front of me that I can play just like I do on the ContinuuMini. That's a very interesting way you might look at this. I probably wouldn't play it this way that often, but it's an interesting way to look at the instrument. One thing is, because we're playing the same channels, if I play on the Linnstrument and the ContinuuMini, if I'm in MPE setting, I may not like the sound that comes out. I could be overlapping myself because I'm sending the same information on the same channels. When I had a channel 1 standard keyboard set up, that was not really interfering with anything that I was playing on the Mini, because when I'm set for MPE or MPE plus, the ContinuuMini is playing on channels 2 to N+1, whereas my standard keyboard was playing on channel 1, so there was no real interference. Now I am playing on the same set of channels on both of them, alternating according to MPE rules, and it could cause some conflict. So in this sense, I'll probably want to play either one or the other in this mode.